A long time ago, in a town in Totori Prefecture, there was a small inn. One winter night, when one of the guests at the inn was sleeping, he suddenly woke up at midnight to the sound of human voices. "Elder brother, you must be cold. Little brother, you must be cold." The voices were those of whispering children. Well now, where would children be at this hour? The guest wondered. They're not supposed to be anywhere else in this room. Crawling out from under his futon, the guest peeped into the next door room to see what was going on. But it was completely quiet, and not a sound could be heard. That's strange, he thought. I'm sure I heard something. The man got back under his futon once again and tried to go back to sleep. But this time he heard the voices quite clearly right next to his ear. "Elder brother, you must be cold. Little brother, you must be cold." The guest was shocked and leapt to his feet. He hurriedly lit a lamp, but there was no one else in the room. All he could hear was the sound of his own heart beating. With the lamp still glowing, the guest lay down on his side. Then, once again, came the sad, whispering voices. "Elder brother, you must be cold. Little brother, you must be cold." Somehow the voices seemed to be coming from right inside the futon. The man shuddered in horror, brushed away the futon in panic, and nearly falling over himself leapt out of the room, running into the innkeeper. "What foolishness is this? You were probably just having a dream," the innkeeper exclaimed. No matter how the guest explained the situation, the innkeeper refused to believe him. On the contrary, he got angry. "Let's not drag this out any longer. Do me the favor of getting out of here." And with that, he drove the guest from the inn. The next night, however, a different guest staying in the same room also ran off at midnight, telling the same story. This is something strange, the innkeeper thought. Could this be a ghost? The innkeeper went into the room himself and sat next to the futon for a while. Eventually, from the futon cover, sad voices began whispering. "Elder brother, you must be cold. Little brother, you must be cold." The innkeeper turned pale and ran from the room. What an eerie futon, he thought. And what kind of terrible shop would sell a futon like this? The next day, the innkeeper went to the used furniture store where he had bought the futon to make a complaint. There he heard a sad story. On the outskirts of a town in the same prefecture of Totori, there lived a poor family of 4. Some days before, after a long illness, the father had died in his sleep, and soon after, the mother had also passed away. This left only an elder brother, 6 years old, and a younger brother of 4. Having no relatives to care for them, the brothers went day after day with nothing to eat and shivered from the cold and empty stomachs under a single futon. "Elder brother, you must be cold." The affectionate younger brother would try to pull the futon over his older brother. "Little brother, you must be cold." And the elder brother would put the futon over his little brother. But the cold-hearted landlord finally came, took the futon in place of the rent, and drove the children from the house. The 2 boys who had had nothing to eat for days could not even walk. That night as snow fell, they held each other in their arms under the eave of a nearby house and froze to death. When the people of the town found out about this, they pitied the 2 boys and laid them to rest at a nearby temple dedicated to Kannon, the Buddhist goddess of mercy. "Is that what happened?" the innkeeper said. "What a miserable thing the landlord did." He promptly set out to visit the temple dedicated to Kannon and formally read a sutra for the sake of the 2 little boys. It is said that after that, the futon never spoke again. A long time ago, a strange incident occurred in the village of Koga, located in what is now Shiga Prefecture. When night fell in the village, a wooden cart would come out of nowhere, and with a weird creaking noise pass through the village to some unknown destination. "This is a ghost cart without a doubt," the townspeople agreed, and they say that anyone who witnesses it passing by will incur some terrible retribution. Thus, when the day came to an end, the doors of anyone's homes were securely locked, and people went straight to bed. There was in this village, however, a rather bold housewife who thought to herself, "How can there be retribution for just seeing a ghost? I have a good mind to take a look and see just what kind of a ghost rides in a cart." That night, when everyone was sleeping peacefully, the housewife got up quietly and, opening the front door just a crack, waited for the ghost cart to come by. Outside, a bright moon shone a white light on the road. Before long, the housewife could hear the grating sound of the ghost cart as it approached, and suddenly let out a faint gasp. A single woman with long, straight hair, dressed in a kimono, sat in the cart, which had only one wheel. Although no one was pulling the cart, it advanced steadily, creaking as it came. While the housewife had thought that the ghost would have a frightening appearance, this woman was young and beautiful. As the housewife stared at the woman in her trance, the cart came to a standstill right in front of her house. In a panic, the housewife shut the door and crouched down behind it. But then the woman whispered in a soft, thin voice, "So you have dared to look at me, have you? Now go and take a look at the baby you hold so dear." With a start, the housewife ran to the room where the baby had been sleeping, but there was no sign of the child. "Oh no," she cried. "Everyone, please wake up." The housewife turned pale and shook her husband awake and everyone else in the house. In a panic, they all ran to the front of the house, but the cart was nowhere to be seen. The husband was in tears. "Look what you've done," he yelled accusingly. But it was too late. The housewife could not simply give up on the child she loved so much. With tears running down her face, she wrote down her feelings on a piece of paper and posted it on the front door. "The person who did wrong by looking at the cart," it said, "was me. The child is guilty of no crime at all. If you will return my baby, I will accept my punishment, no matter how terrible." The following night, the ghost cart creaked along and stopped in front of the housewife's door. Although she wanted to dash outside, the housewife held herself patiently in check. "If I look upon this woman again," she thought, "my child may be killed outright." The woman in the ghost cart's gaze fixed on the paper posted on the door, and suddenly spoke with what seemed a very sad demeanor. "What a tender-hearted woman this must be. The defeat is mine. Although I had thought I would never return this child, this time, just this once, I shall do so." The housewife heard this from where she crouched inside the door and hurried to the child's room, nearly falling over as she ran. And there was the child, sound asleep. Thank you," the housewife cried, quietly putting the palms of her hands together, as the creaking of the ghost cart could be heard gradually going farther and farther away. After this event, the ghost cart never returned. Long ago, in the village of Nanaguchi, which was in the old province of Tamba, there lived a man by the name of Yoji. He lived with his grandmother, a woman who had reached the incredible age of 160. Despite her age, this woman's eyes were clear, and her hearing quite sharp. Her teeth were as strong as rocks, and she could crunch away at anything from hard beans to brittle rice cakes. "What a healthy old lady," the elderly of the village said. "I'd like to be as strong as she is." How jealous they felt. After some time, however, the old lady stopped eating rice. Up until this point, she had been able to eat as much as the young people in the village, so this was somewhat strange. Yoji was worried and said, "Grandma, if you stop eating rice, I'm afraid you'll die." "What are you talking about?" she said. "Not eating rice is all the same to me." And it seemed as though she had stopped eating rice for good. By abstaining from eating rice as she did, the old lady rapidly lost weight. Her eyes sank into her head, her teeth stuck out like sticks, and she began to look like an old ogress. Somehow she was turning a blue-green color right to her eyes. The strange thing, however, was that her bones, and only her bones, were getting thicker and thicker. About this time, the old lady's behavior was also becoming rather strange. At midnight, she would suddenly get up, look like she was peering around, then look at Yoji's face and start chuckling. This naturally worried Yoji, and he was unable to sleep well at night. One night, Yoji suddenly woke up and saw that his grandmother was about to go outside. Where would she be going at midnight, he wondered. Yoji quietly got up himself and secretly followed the old woman. His grandmother was unaware of what he was doing and walked quickly on alone without looking behind. The speed of her steps was almost inhuman. The old lady finally stopped when she got to the graveyard just outside the village. To lose sight of her now would be a disaster, so Yoji moved along quickly, then hid behind a large cedar tree. Uh-oh, where did she go, he wondered. He had looked away for a moment and the old lady had disappeared. I'm sure she was right over there. Yoji looked around restlessly, then heard the sound of something being crunched or chewed from the direction of the graves. Fearfully, he looked carefully among the grave markers. Then, what was that? There was the old woman, his grandmother, her hair disheveled, chewing on human bones. Human bones dug up from the graves, bones of hands and feet and full skeletons. They were strewn all over the ground. When Yoji unthinkingly let out a groan, his grandmother suddenly whirled around and glared at him with a horrible expression. What have you seen, my boy? In the very instant she said this, the old lady ran through the gravestones with the bones still in her mouth and headed toward the mountain in full flight. That was the last time anyone ever saw the old lady, and nobody knew where she went. It was rumored among the people of the village, however, that she had turned into the demon of Mount Oe. It's that time of year again, where the darkness feels that much darker, and every creak and groan of your house feels that slight bit more unsettling. It's that time of year where your sense of fear and dread creeps more deeply upon you, and your fears are suddenly heightened. But there's no need to fear. We have the perfect solution for you. Spooktober 2024 is once again sponsored by VENATOS. As you all know by now, VENATOS offers the topmost quality in gaming equipment, and with their top-rated customer service, you won't have any buyer's remorse nightmares, even if you live on Elm Street. You can avoid the terror of added fees, because VENATOS ships free to the United States, Canada, and hell. Well, hell, Michigan, that is. What are you waiting for? Go to VENATOS.com today. Still scared? How about you use code PRESSSTARTMOM at checkout and save an additional 10% off your order? That should keep the monsters at bay. For now.